I always wondered how these celebrities can speak English so fluently because when we listen to them speaking, it feels like they are born with this skill. And many of them have said that they haven't even finished their schooling, or they are from a small town, or they are from a middle class family where they haven't had enough resources. Despite this, today they can speak comfortably in front of hundreds of people, that too in English.
I was nothing like I am today. I couldn't speak a word of English.
इंग्लिश आपने सीखी क्यों? क्योंकि जब मैंने एलएसडी की और जब उसके इंटरव्यू शुरू हुए तो आई रियलाइज कि यहाँ तो सब इंग्लिश में बात करते हैं। फिर मुझे समझ आया कि ये लैंग्वेज तो आनी चाहिए।
And to understand this, I did some research. And for that, I watched some of their podcasts or interviews. And from there, I got to know some interesting insights. And in this video, I have decided to share that with you. I have compiled all these things together in 3 points. So today, I will share 3 tips that help them to speak English comfortably. And I'm sure that will help you too. And in the end, I will also share how you can implement that in your day-to-day life. So let's get started with the video. First point is having English environment and exposure. To understand this, watch this particular clip.
बिकॉज कोई भी लैंग्वेज आपको बोलने से आती है, आपका एनवायरनमेंट आपको वो लैंग्वेज सिखाता है। देन ऑफ कोर्स आई स्टार्टेड स्पीकिंग, कन्वर्सिंग इन इंग्लिश विद पीपल, टूटी फूटी जैसे भी तोड़ मरोड़ के सुन सुन के बहुत सीखता था मैं सुन के।
Because of their work, they are surrounded by hundreds of people, especially the ones who speak English regularly. And in this case, we can take a basic example here, movie set. A movie takes many weeks to get shot completely. For reference, we can understand we can take 3, 4 months. And imagine the situation you are spending 3, 4 months, that too 10 to 12 hours every day, being surrounded by people who speak English regularly. With this, what happens? They get to listen a lot of English. And in language learning, listening plays a very important role. The same situation when we learn our native language, first we listen a lot from the people around us. Similar situation happens here. They get to listen a lot of English from the people around them, and that helps them adapt the language. And gradually, when we start understanding, we start using it in our regular basis, in our regular conversations. In these situations, they have an extra advantage. That is, first, they get to listen from those people and they use that learning immediately on spot. And doing it regularly for many days, many weeks, or many months help them understand and implement the language. Now, let's move to the next point, media interviews. So, when we listen to somebody's interview, it feels like they are speaking flawlessly. But when we imagine the real situation, they are sitting in a room full of people facing a lot of cameras and having that spotlight on them. They are sitting in a situations where a person can ask anything in English and they get to respond in the same language. Mostly their interviews are in English, and people around them also encourage them to speak English because it can reach out to many people. To understand this, watch this particular clip.
You could only speak broken English, that's right? True. Even when you participated at Miss Universe. At Miss Universe. आपने कैसे सीखी? I want to know, what did you do? What was your process of learning that language?
I think what really helped me was everybody made it mandatory that सिर्फ इंग्लिश में बात करेंगे सब मेरे साथ. So the whole Miss Universe organization only spoke in English, complicated English.
These type of situations help them deal with a lot of people, and in these situations they get to speak real life English. That helps them again, that environment and that exposure. They don't need to wait for the time where someone would come to them and ask them to learn English. They are constantly learning from their environment and using it in their interviews or wherever they are getting chance on a big platform. And it helps them facing a lot of people and using English language in front of many people. Here, I want to tell you one interesting thing. There is a strong relationship between psychology and learning any language. So, in psychology, there is a concept named exposure therapy that says if you are afraid of something and you have some fear, the when you start facing that fear, with time it starts vanishing. And if you do opposite, it gets even worse. For example, if you are afraid of speaking English and you are constantly putting yourself in the situations, you are getting that exposure of English, that fear starts vanishing. You become more comfortable. The more you expose to the language, the more comfortable you become. But as a normal person, we tend to do the opposite. Many of you can relate to this situation. For example, when you come across a situation where you have to use English, you have to speak English, you tend to run away or you tend to avoid that situation. At that moment, it feels great because you don't have to speak. You have overcome that challenge instantly. But in real life, it gets worse because what happens for one moment you can avoid, but next time, if you face the same fear, you are even more afraid. And that keeps adding. And that takes me to the next point, traveling. Because of their work, they travel to different states or different countries and they stay longer. And when you are in the place where nobody knows your native language, then the common language that comes in is English. So if you are staying somewhere for many weeks or many months, you get to choose one common language, that's English. This environment, this traveling culture, traveling gives them that exposure, that environment and exposure where they can listen to a lot of English and they can implement the same thing. Because when you are outside somewhere and you know people don't understand your native language, you try to communicate in a common language, that is English again. So that gives them a mandatory condition to communicate, mandatory language to communicate, English again. With this, we can understand how these people can learn the language relatively faster because they're constantly exposed to the language. They're constantly in the situations where they can't avoid, and they're facing a lot of people that normally we tend to avoid. And now let's talk about a very important point here, having a personal trainer. Sometimes these people do shooting in different languages, and for them, they have their language trainer. That person helps them learn the language faster.
And so, how did you teach yourself? I have a tutor. Yeah. Yeah, who works on my accent and on my language when I get time.
Especially if someone is learning English from the starting, it gets difficult. If you are doing so, you can understand, you can relate to the situations because we get afraid of a lot of things. So this person, trainer, helps them understand their mistake and correct them and immediately provide them feedback so that they can correct themselves immediately. With the help of trainer, they get to learn the language. That person trains them how to respond to certain type of questions, how to talk to these certain type of people. So that helps them learn the language faster because the trainer has already walked through the path that they are trying to walk on. So trainer helps them reach that destination faster by telling them the shortest way possible. With this, they get to learn the language faster. And in general, if you are a beginner, with the help of trainer, you get to learn faster. And now let's talk about something that most of us do when we want to learn something new, that is self-learning. Here, the catch is your self learning can be different than their self learning because in their self learning comes learning from real situations. For example, if they have to attend any award function, they will listen to speech from different award functions, and that will prepare them for the real life situations if they have to face any. And it is less likely to happen that they are sitting with a grammar rule or cramming some English rules to speak. In their case, it is like practical listening, practical learning, and practical implementation. But in your case, what you might have been doing, following a conventional method, which is like reading a lot, watching a lot, listening a lot, but speaking less. So here the important part is self-learning, but the right way, following the right practices with the help of right environment, right people around yourself. So these were some points that I got to know after watching their podcasts and interviews. And I will tell you how you can implement the same. We are not celebrities. We don't have such environment and exposure, but we can replicate the same thing. For example, in the first point, I said having environment and exposure. You can create the similar environment for yourself. You might not have hundreds of people around you talking English, but you can have hundreds of people talking to you virtually. I mean, watching English content, listening English content, that too active listening, not the passive one. So you can create the environment by listening some interviews, podcasts, speech, and people around you. Very important. And for the exposure, you can talk to people around you without feeling that hesitation. Remember, I told you this exposure therapy, it helps. So you can implement the same wherever you are getting a chance, whoever you are talking to, try to communicate and let them know that you are practicing English. So high chances they will help you. You can leverage people around you, or you can speak by yourself. You can practice in front of the camera. You can practice by yourself. So that would help you create that environment and exposure. Second, I talked about having a personal trainer. This can be your best investment because learning English is going to help you lifetime. It is not like a one-time investment and done. You can leverage that skill everywhere. So this investment is worth. If you can do, you can invest your time, energy, and you can get a trainer that would help you to give you structure because that person knows how to take you to the destination in a fastest way possible. And third point was self-learning. So for that, try to do the right way. For example, you can start with active listening and using that learning to speak rather than sitting with some books following certain rules. What you can do, listen a lot because it helps. It is one of the most important skills to do when it comes to learning any language. Listen and then implement those learnings, whatever you learn from the listening. Read if you like, but make sure whatever you are doing, pick something that interests you. Maybe try to consume diverse content. For example, if you like sports or movies or anything, just get involved with that. Not to get information, but to learn the language. And in the end, I would like to say the goal is not to become perfect in English. The goal is to communicate your thoughts, your ideas, so that others can understand comfortably. So focus on that. Focus on the result that you can get out of communication, that you can get out of English communication. So try to focus on that rather than focus on perfection. So the purpose of this video was to give you a different perspective. So try to implement your way as much as you can. And thank you so much for watching this video till the end.